Hello everybody, my name is Troublemaker. The game in the background is Team Fortress 2, and today I will be talking about video game violence and children. The gaming community is made of some of the scummiest, corrupted people in the media. Every time the gaming industry gets charged with something, no less than IGN, GameSpot, and Machinima are there to immediately provide a fluff piece to distract anything against the video game industry. It's sickening. Instead of being unbiased and researching positions, they create straw men to knock over. A straw man, in logic, is an argument that is very easy to defeat. You deploy these in order to look like you have a great argument. Often you mispresent people's arguments and purposely pick weaker targets. I am by no means qualified to even talk about this. I am only a bachelor of philosophy. But I'm no less qualified than any of the other journalists who have been defending the video game industry. It's time to get the elephant in the room behind us. Video games are more and more violent. On top of this, they are marketed to what we call the tween generation. This is a group of people who are on the cusps of adolescence and still hold on to many of their childish things while trying to become adults. They range from age 9 to age 12. This demographic is a powerful marketing tool because if you can market to them, you can market to everyone. The goal of this marketing is to try to make gaming sort of look adult and sort of look childish so that this key demographic will buy into it. The end result is that because it's kind of childish, it feels kind of harmless. And because it's kind of adult, it keeps us adults playing it. It allows us to say that cartoony games are also not for children, something an adult buying a game for their child would not know. You see a similar controversy around adult manga in Japanese culture. Are violent video games bad for children? Absolutely. Because of some clever twisting and strawmanning, the data generally gets ignored. The American Psychological Association did a 40-year study on the effects of violent video games. Think about that. 40 years. This means violent video games that were involved in the study would have begun with games like Pac-Man and Pong. There are studies that show that violent video games have no impact on children. There are also studies that show smoking is good for you. The key is to know where the majority of the studies are, and 95% on violent video games are saying they're bad for kids. And just what happens that also smoking is bad for kids, apparently. Violent video games increase aggression. Aggression alone isn't a bad thing, but if you're a psychologist, high amounts of childhood aggression can lead to a number of neuroses and problems. Think of your body like a machine. Your body receives emotional input from your environment. These emotions form chemicals. The chemicals will react with each other and create an emotional response. The environment responds to this, creating another emotional input. This model might sound a little familiar to some people because this is a general model for how everything works. So imagine this sort of reaction happening over and over and over. In this kind of emotion chemical reaction, not all chemicals are going to get used up to create an emotional response. Some chemical byproducts will stay in your body until an appropriate reaction occurs. Often this is referred to as stored emotions. As a person stores these emotions, over time they will create new chemical compositions that may not show up as emotions immediately. It's in this way childhood aggression can evolve into multiple syndromes, including but not limited to oppositional defiant disorder, also known as ODD, conduct disorder, also known as CD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD, mood disorders, schizophrenia, autism, and anxiety disorders. The processes for evaluating these conditions is weak and often overdiagnosed. However, the science for how they form is solid. Every single news media outlet had the same stupid response to this. Instead of stating violent video games are not for children, like the NRA did, they acted as if the media madness was targeted at banning video games. The video game community should have stood together, solemnly declaring that violent video games are bad for children and now no child should play them. As IGN states from their own article, children represent less than 10% of all video game sales. On top of this, video game industry should come out together and put pressure on massive numbers of video game developers who are publishing without ratings. The game in the background, Team Fortress 2, is from Valve. This game has an M rating. However, if you go to the Steam store page, there's absolutely no mention of this M rating anywhere. To make things confusing, all the characters are kind of cartoony, and all the promotional material is children-like tongue-in-cheek humor. Steam is going to be releasing a console system that will no doubt make these games all playable from home TV. If one of the most respected developers in gaming hides its ratings, how are good parents expected to moderate what their children are playing? Overall, school shootings in which video games are blamed often show how video games come with mixed messages. Imagine, if you will, in the middle of Barney and Friends television show, Barney picks up an AK-47 and starts gunning down Baby Bop. As a parent, you'll be confused by this, especially as Barney is singing and dancing while doing it. But there was a rating on this, NC-17, you should have read the rating. But that's not the point. This is how shortchanged parents can feel about picking up video games. I'm not saying all video games are bad, or you should stop playing them. I grew up on video games, and I grew up on violent video games. I grew up fine. And that's why so many people feel the claim is ridiculous, because they grew up fine. Generally, developmental problems are not isolated to one thing. They are combinations of things. Just because I grew up fine doesn't make violent video games good. No more than my coworkers not having lung cancer doesn't prove smoking is. As video gamers, we should be asking for larger warnings on packages. Developers should take initiative to properly brand their games, and better peer reviewing from third parties, such as IGN, GameSpot, and Machinima. Between 1997 and 2013, there have been 21 school shootings in the United States. Because of how rare this is, it's hard to study as a topic. More often than not, people are just going to try and peg it on whatever they're against, whether it be bullying, guns, video games, movies, or even communism. Nothing I will say will change this culture, and I post this only in hopes that you will start seeing a larger picture instead of seeing it as your pastime getting witch hunted. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I hope this has been helpful in some regards in seeing a broader picture. In the meantime, enjoy your pastime and subscribe to my channel. I've got lots of great video game content of some of the most violent video games out there, and if there's not a more two-faced message, it's just that. Just don't show it to your children, please.